Hi, welcome back to Just Vetting, where we go beyond the exam room to talk about leadership, ownership, and what it really takes to build something that lasts. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Goodman, longtime leader of Everhart Veterinary Medical Group in Baltimore, a practice that has grown from a single doctor hospital into a respected, multi-location veterinary organization known for both medical excellence and deep community roots. Dr. Goodman, welcome to Just Vetting.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you having me on.
So, Dr. Goodman, you've talked about, anybody goes to your practice website, you talk about your entry into veterinary medicine, and you mentioned your childhood dog, Peachy. Now, what did that relationship, teach you about the human-animal bond? Growing, in the very early stages of guys figuring out a career path for yourself.
Well, I've always been had a lot of empathy for animals, always trying to rescue small ones, wild animals, and always felt very empathetic for the fact that they're here too and that we're equals and we're not dominant. And she was my best friend growing up, did a lot of things with her, and it just taught me how important it is. And at that time, veterinary medicine wasn't the way it was today, right. But I felt a bond to her and to not necessarily the profession until I got a little bit older, but pretty much going forward later in high school and college and everything else like that. This was something that knew I wanted to pursue.
So you had that relationship with her, and you grew up in Cleveland, right? Did you know that while growing up in Cleveland, did you always know veterinary medicine was your path, or was it later on in life that it came to fruition?
Well, I knew I was going to go into some form of medicine, whether on the human side or the veterinary side. Mm-hmm. My acumen in school led me that way, and I was very good at science and not as good in math, but good in science, and consequently math. My oldest brother was a math genius, so he'd help me through math. So I got through that, but I always knew from academically that's what I wanted to do. And I, looked at both professions, applied to both schools, and decided I wanted to go the veterinary route. And, at the time, it was harder to get into veterinary school than medical school because Ohio had 7 or 8 medical schools, mm-hmm. and only 1 vet school. So there are only 144 places across the whole state,
right,
when there were 1,000 places in medical school. So it was harder. And I worked with a veterinarian in my college town in Oxford, Ohio, 2 of them, and I really enjoyed it. And I also did some work at the hospital there at the health center, and I just thought I liked it a little bit better, and that's where it led me to that direction.
Mm. And you went to the Ohio State, correct? Is that?
I went to. Yeah, when I went there, it was Ohio State,
right.
But that's fine.
I know they're picky about that. It's all good.
Yeah.
You joined Everhart in the early 1980s. What was the practice like when you joined?
It was in a ill-suited former funeral home that was approximately 1,100 square feet. And we had 4 doctors, 2 receptionists, and 2 assistants. And one of the assistants was the founder's father-in-law. So it was a very small but very, very hardworking practice, and we saw a lot of things, and we learned a lot from there. So it was a very strong learning experience, and we did everything at the time. So I got exposed to a lot of different things at the time.
How was I hear you saying you did everything and you learned a lot. So the mentorship, even though it's a small environment, you were being mentored along the way, learning probably not only the practice, but the business too.
Yes. I learned the business. Dr. Everhart's favorite statement about running the business was, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. So it taught me um, about trying to manage your costs as best you could. And also, it was a very client centric practice. We did everything, we tried to do everything for the client we could. And it was just a very strong learning experience as far as how I thought things should be moving forward and trying to create something that was special. And it was a very special place at the time.
Yeah, I don't think anything's changed much in terms of, Dr. Everhart's advice, right? I think any business now, years later, we're still trying to figure that out, right? Um,
Exactly. We just had a meeting about it
right,
today, and it's like, yeah, we can do, if the revenue's there, that's great. But if it costs you $20,000 to earn $20,000, then you're not really doing what you should be doing. So you don't need to do that.
right,
So
right.
it's a very tough thing. It's an interesting, I guess it's interesting that I brought that up in these economic times because it's just very, this has been a tough time. 2025 with everything, especially in the East Coast along Maryland in the DC corridor, in the business and the government agencies was a really tough year. I think 26 is going to be much better.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um, Looking back, still, I'm just thinking back along your progress. So, you go to Everhart in the '80s, and then are you there? You end up purchasing it in the '90s. How long were you there until when you decided? Because you end up running the hospital at some point in time before you purchased
right.
it, right?
Yeah, we purchased it about 8 years
Mm-hmm.
later. I had a partner at the time. We did a 10-year buyout. The wisdom of buying something that you were actually really producing a lot of the income was a little bit lost in me at the time, but it was a very good practice and had a very good name. And I think at the time it was seemingly there was no money down. It was all basically pay as you go. So it wasn't like we had to borrow any money.
Right.
He made it so it would be an easy transition. And over 10 years, we bought out the practice. It was easy to make the note, so it wasn't really a huge outlay on our part where we had to go out and borrow money from a bank. But at the end of the day, um, a few years later, my partner and I had an amicable
Separation,
part
right? Right,
separation,
right, right.
that's
I know
what
what
you
you're
guys
looking
call it,
for, right?
an amicable separation. And I ended up taking over the business and expanding it. We moved to a new location about 5 years later, and then we expanded to the other two locations about another 8 and 10 years later. So
Yeah, talk with me about that in terms of the growth. I guess was that it sounds like it was incremental, but I guess do you always have a vision? You mentioned early on the practice was located in a very small location. Did you always think because of demand there was a need to grow it?
yeah, we had to grow. It was very ill suited. The building couldn't be renovated. There was no parking. And so a property came up that was close by, that wasn't far enough away that it was going to cause an issue, but it had everything that we wanted. It had plenty of space. It's 12,000 square feet. We have great parking. We're on a street that probably gets 50,000 cars a day going up and down it. And it was just a natural thing to move here. I never even thought twice about it. I didn't do a whole pro forma.
Mm-hmm.
Guess I was really arrogant to say I'm going to just do this and we'll see what happens, and took the risk. And it took about 5 years for us to become imminently profitable again with all the money, because it was about at that time it was about a how much did it about a $3 million. The property was about $800,000, and then we had to put approximately at the time, which was a lot of money, at the time was 1.5 million
Mm-hmm.
in. So it cost about 2.3 million to do it. But I knew it was going to be successful. I just had a feeling it was going to be that way. So I just went ahead and did it. I started out, with basically just my diploma, and I figured I was going to, if it didn't go well, it wasn't going to go well.
Right.
But I thought I knew we could do it. And veterinary medicine was changing; it was expanding and changing, and I felt that it was something to do. And then when we reached capacity at this building, which we did probably about 10 years later, we were at full capacity. And it's an older building. It's 100 years old now. It's very interesting building. Anytime you're in Baltimore, I'd like to show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really have the ability to expand it. And it would really ruin the whole design. So I decided I was going to go to an area where people that used to live around this area moved to go upscale, and we had a lot of clients that were from that area. So I decided to do that, and that's when I opened the practice in Rivera Beach, Pasadena in 2018, which was just in time for the whole COVID thing, which was great because we had plenty of capacity.
Right.
We kept both hospitals open, although separate. And then when that practice got at capacity, I was looking to expand to an area that was on the other end of town where other people from another section would all move after they moved out of the city into the suburbs. So we opened that up, the Cross Keys office in 2022. So if I had more doctors, and I actually plan on opening another office as soon as we get ourselves completely situated with doctors, because I have a great location in mind. And I just believe in momentum and moving forward. That's all.
You know, when you're talking, it reminded me of another client a few years ago, and I had asked him, he was going to do a pretty risky business venture, and I said, "What if it doesn't work out?" And he sounded very confident, like you did. He said, "You know what? At the end of the day, I know I started 2 practices, they went well, and if this doesn't work out, I'm confident I can start another one and make a good living at it." So, I mean, it was just confidence in yourself you were going to succeed one way or the other, whether it was here or somewhere else, you're going to do it. Let me ask you, what do you know? What do you think, based upon your experience to date, what do you think associates misunderstand maybe the most about owners or ownership? Going from what you were as an associate, going through that process, and obviously working with a lot of associates over the years.
I think they just misunderstand the amount of work it takes to just, you just can't show up and work and then go home and not be concerned with it. There's just so much work that takes, so much emotional and work it takes to scale up and also maintain the level of quality. And that's why when you have franchises, what they do is once they find something that works, they just keep repeating it over and over again, because you have to be able to have it repeatable and scalable. And that's been the hardest thing for associates to understand. And the second thing is, how much emotional effort it does take to be able to keep people working, keep people engaged, and maintain your culture. I mean, that's, I think, the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And also that it's really, financially, you're not really running at 50% margins. You're running on a really good business. You're running at 18 to 22. And if you have something that disrupts that even a small amount, it doesn't take a lot to really disrupt exactly what's going on and make it a financial really question the finances of it. It's very, very hard. You have to be diligent each and every day financially to be able to do it. I think that's what's hard.
Going back to what your old mentor told you, Dr. Everhart, right? That's it.
Right. Exactly.
Right. It's true. And I know you're joking about it, but it really is true. When you think about all the balls that you got to juggle, culturally, internally, the relationships you're maintaining with your clients. I know in my hospital where I go with my own dog, my relationships with my veterinarian, the owner, once he's not there anymore, I'm not sure where I'll end up going. But he is the connection that I have to that place, and he really makes an effort to keep that connection. I think he's a little bit of old school in that way. There's a lot of things that you got to juggle as an owner.
Well, I'm that way too, except it's gotten to the point where it's too big for me to be that way. But what you have to do is do your best to try to maintain the culture that you've created and make sure that everybody understands that, because you don't want there to be any there's going to naturally be a differential between the owner and the founder who has a fire in his belly to, it's my business and I want to make it
Right.
work, to somebody who's not. And if they you can't expect them. One thing I've learned is you can't expect them to be you, but you can expect them to think like you, and maybe most of the time be that way. And that's what you have to do. And I'm always gratified when I see a staff member, especially a doctor, just step up and do, we got this, we're going to do this. It's not like figuring out a way to not do, spending 15 minutes figuring out how not to do something when it would take 5 minutes just to do it and just get it done, and that's really part, what the learning curve is with that, for sure.
What about technology? Has technology improved care? Is it complicated? What's your thoughts on that?
It is. It's much more complicated now. I think the key to moving forward with veterinary medicine is, number one, to maintain high technologies in your practice, because that's how you can get more efficient. I think we're just scratching the surface with the electronic record keeping with AI. I think we can go even farther. I've heard of practices where the owners are really tech savvy and can leverage themselves, and they can, without killing themselves, they can generate $1.5 to $2 million revenue themselves by using technology, AI, telemedicine, and leveraging themselves, so they don't have to be, grinding every single step out. Yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that's, and plus also the level of care that people demand. There's a thing about pets being family versus just being a pet, and the level of care people demand now is just so high that you should put no limits on it. Everybody should say, we say, well, ideally your pet needs to go to a specialist for cancer. I'm not sure what the outcome's going to be, but you should go and get a consultation and decide what you want to do if you're interested. And you don't necessarily have to say you need to do this, but you should say, I think this might be something you're interested in, and here's somebody you can go to. And you're always surprised that, when you go there, it's an open checkbook. It's $10,000 to $25,000 to treat it, and it's like, okay, well, you're going to do that. That's great. And you never know who's going to do it.
Right.
You never know who's going to want to say, I'm willing to do this, even though I don't have all this money set aside, but this is important to me. So you have to always be on the side of saying, never decide for anybody what they're going to do. That's a really important lesson too.
Right. I guess, and that's probably a really significant change that's occurred since when you started practicing. And you do hear that a lot. And I have, colleagues and friends, knock on wood, my dog hasn't had the experience that yet, but, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars that they're spending on their pets. But not everybody wants to do that. But your job is to provide the option and say, listen, this is an option. And if you want to go ahead and do it, you can go ahead and do it. And this what it'll cost. It's
absolutely. Yeah. It's just, you never know. We have cases that I didn't think was going to, dogs were really sick. And I said, if you want to look into an oncologist and see what they do, your dog has cancer, it's all over its abdomen. But you never know. And they just surprise you all the time.
I'm trying to think in terms of, somebody who maybe is 5 years behind you, talking about, where you've come in your career. What advice would you give them in terms of, because they're a practice owner, maybe they're 5 to 7 years behind you. Is there any advice, tactical advice you can give them?
Yeah, I would say two things. Try to determine what you really want to do, and if you're ready to do it, prepare your practice for that. Be able to leverage yourself and not be the main practice provider if you can. Turn the practice revenue, the rainmaking ability to other individuals in your practice, so that when you are ready to say, I really want to slow down or not do this, it's not going to be a huge hiccup. And really plan what you want to do if you want to stop working, plan on it, make a plan for afterwards, so you're not just completely lost as far as what you're doing. Make a plan. Yeah,
the planning is something I hear all the time, especially if you go to any industry conference or meetings, plan. Um, One of the I
Yeah,
heard
plan on what you want to do for your first year.
right.
Say I'm going to volunteer and do this. I have two friends that I grew up with. Both are physicians. One was a family practice, the other one was a surgeon. And the family practice guy just decided one day he was going to retire, and he is completely lost. He retired in August of last year, and he was like the doctor in this kind of small medium
Right.
town, and he's been really lost. The other one, who's a surgeon in a larger town, said, I'm going to plan what I'm going to do for the next 2 years, really in 3-month increments, and he's been fine and he's transitioned well. So I think those are people that I grew up with,
Hmm.
and that's the way. You can't just stop working and expect your whole time to be filled and not plan on doing things. So that's what. And about with your practice, you have to get your practice ready. You have to make sure all your numbers are right. The numbers that you present for the bid for the LOI have to be correct and very sustainable throughout the due diligence. It's really important, because that's something that is looked at very carefully, which I didn't really realize. I thought that once you sign the LOI, well, this is your deal. This is your contract. You understand why our numbers for a couple months were down, but then it becomes, oh, we don't really expect this. And, in my opinion, and I don't know if it's true, Pete, or not, is that they don't really want to come in and work on your practice. They want to buy something that's either very stable or growing, so they don't have to do
Right.
anything for the first years while they monetize it. And then after that, if they can work through it, then you can move forward. And I don't know if that's exactly completely correct, but I think that's kind of the gist of the takeaway for me.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% correct. I mean,
You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. Uh-oh. What happened?
I can't hear you.
Huh. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
There
now
we
we're
go.
good.
Can you hear me now? It's like Verizon.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think you're 100% correct in those terms. And we always talk with our clients about, a good buyer, you're going to come in, and you don't want to fix something, especially a corporate buyer. You don't want to fix something that's not broken. If your practice is, humming on all cylinders, that's the best thing for them. They may change the credit card machine, but other than that, and then
Right.
culturally, because obviously culture is very important. You mentioned that before in every conversation that we have. Culture always comes up. I find it really, I've been practicing as a business lawyer for over 30 years now, and over 15 in this industry in particular. And what's unique about this industry is the importance placed on the culture and the family of the practice, and owners like you saying, okay, great, I'm going to get X amount of dollars, which is important to everybody, right? And for your families and take care of them. But just as important, what's the culture going to be like when you buy my practice? What is it going to look like for my staff, my team on a going forward basis? That is just as critical as the money you're going to get at closing, which is I find very specific to this industry.
Yeah, I think if you would really want to do something in any industry, it's important. I think it's more important because it's a business where it's very emotionally draining, and you can't really run it as a completely transactional business. You can't do it. It doesn't work. It just doesn't
So,
work.
so looking back, and I got two questions for you. How do you stay motivated after almost 4 decades of practicing? And it's and I really say that in a respectful way. I mean, because you're talking about even maybe looking for a new location, and in the same token, in terms of private practice, from when you started to now, do you find it easier, harder? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's much harder.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. It's much more complicated. Just all the I mean, I'm not going to get started on why I don't think that small businesses should provide health insurance to their employees.
Hmm.
I think it's a huge problem in the United States. We're the only country that does that.
Right.
But just providing health insurance to your staff, providing benefits, providing FMLA, providing, making sure that it's a safe place for people to work, making sure that it's appropriate, making sure there's not, safe both mentally and physically. And it's complicated. I mean, most vet practices, my best friend in vet school's father was a veterinarian, and his practice was in his family's garage. The garage was turned into his office. And I mean, that's how it worked.
Yeah.
And so a lot of physicians had an addition to their house, and you would go to their house and go to their office right next to their house. And so it's just gotten so complicated, and financially it's, nobody thought that you would be able to leverage your practice to what you can get financially for it. But what goes along with it is a lot more work, in my opinion.
Right.
So it is complicated. The HR piece of it is very, very difficult. And there's a lot of landmines going along with it. But I think it's worth it because, the enterprise does have value. And if you work hard and you do a good job, you do get rewarded versus not. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the feeling is. But it is much more difficult. And I do think, though, with AI, telemedicine, and things that we have technologically, we can make it easier and much less of a burden. Record keeping, I think medical record keeping should become almost simple as you move along. You should be able to record your conversation with the client. It should be able to be dictated onto the normal record keeping, and you shouldn't have to look back on that because it has the capabilities of doing it. It's just a matter of getting it set up right in order for it to understand it. So I think you really have to learn to leverage yourself and leverage your technology. That would ease the difficulty, but the other things about just basically running a small business is very complicated. And that's why there is value in partnering with a large business, because they take care of a lot of the complexities that you don't have to worry about. They also change the culture of your business. They can't not do it.
Right.
It has to happen.
Yeah, I had a client of mine refer to those complexities you're talking about. The administrative noose is what he called it. Years ago, he was looking to sell, and he was very successful, multiple locations, and he was very young. But he said, he really just wanted, it was just, and everybody's different. But he's like, I just want to remove this administrative noose from my neck and get back into the practice of medicine, which he did. And he transitioned. It's not for everybody. You fast forward from that conversation I had with him, and I'd say over the last 2 years, I see the pendulum shifting back over into the private practice, where we have so many clients opening up, starting up, partnering, opening up new practices while you have, so you're still having the natural succession to corporate practices as well, too. So it's a really nice mix where I think a couple of years ago, a lot of it was just all moving towards corporate, where now it's kind of shifting back, where there's a real mix among within the industry, which is it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, I think clients we're telling, on social media, they're saying, well, Everhart is gone corporate because he has 3 locations and it has to be corporate, and they're raising their prices because it's corporate. And it's like, no, we're not. Right. And we have to raise prices so we don't go corporate.
Right.
That's the whole thing. How can I keep my staff and hire new veterinarians? They want to make, more money than they could possibly ever reasonably earn in 3 or 4 years in their first year. And you have to do it because that's the economy of the what's it called, an opportunity cost. Yep. You have to get them in the saddle and be able to do it, and you're going to lose money on them. And we can't give away services. We have to be able to charge people what's appropriate. The corporates don't have any problem, telling you it's going to be $5,000 to keep their pet overnight in oxygen, which is ridiculous amount of money, right. But they will make them do that. And so we're really redoing our website to really state clearly at this point that we're completely independent. We're privately owned. The decision is made by myself and our board of directors internally. And if you have a problem, you can come to us and we will take care of it. And that's what you want. And even though we have 3 locations and it's a network, it does not necessarily mean we're corporate.
Right.
I'm the corporation.
Right.
Fortunately or unfortunately.
Right. Well, you're running at the end of the day, you're running a business, not a charity. And I don't say that with
Yeah,
any disrespect. You have employees that you got to pay. You're running a business, so and I think still some of maybe the older clients are still trying to get used to that. Those increases where you're being advised you need to increase your prices. It's not because you're doing to be greedy. It's just to keep up with inflation and just to run a proper business. You're doing all the right things so you can continue to grow and be more prevalent in your community. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have to, and we have to provide the services that they
right.
want, and they want us to be available and open. And say, if your pet's sick, you can come in and have enough space to do that. Well, you have to pay people to do that, you
100%.
know?
Right. Right. Especially those evening hours. Exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
how would how would you describe, your leadership, style? You've been successful as an owner from the very beginning, to where you are now. If somebody's listening here, a younger veterinarian, you're trying to just figure out your own leadership style. How would you look at yours and what's worked and maybe what hasn't worked?
For me, I want it to be bigger than me. I want it to be I don't I want it so that we follow a style called traction or EOS, which really the concept is to LMA, which is the lead. It's lead, manage, and accountability. So basically, you want to leverage yourself. You want to make it. My goal is to make it so I become superfluous. I want it to be bigger than me. I don't want it to be that I have to make every decision, and I try to leverage myself enough. So fortunately, I don't have to do a lot of the management stuff. I have people that do that
Mm-hmm.
for me. And so I think that is the one first style is to be collaborative with your team, listen to them, listen to what they say, and ever be closed to any idea that they may come up with. And the second one is try to, make them, grow from within. People that buy into your culture and buy into your business, turn them into leaders and allow them to lead and don't micromanage them. And that's really the key to success. You want to make it bigger than you. You want to make it so if I'm not there or if I shouldn't be there, that I don't really have to be there in order for them to do what they're supposed to do. And that's really the management style to do it, to just allow your best people to do what they do best, and make it so you don't have to worry about things that you shouldn't have to do. One of my mentors would always say he wants the veterinarians to just do what they're licensed to do, no more, no less. They do what they love and heal the pets.
Right.
You have everybody else to do everything else. That includes management and everything else like that. So,
It's great
I,
advice. It sounds easier than said, right? And again, it goes back to confidence because your confidence in yourself and in your team. So then you don't have to be the bottleneck there and everything micromanage
right,
the team. Otherwise, you're never going to grow. And obviously, you've been really successful at growing your practice to where you are now. That's great.
right.
So, well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. Any other last words of wisdom before we depart? I really appreciate your time today and giving some advice and some um, background on what made your journey such a success.
Um, I just think you need to be true to yourself, be brutally honest with your staff, be brutally honest with the clients. If you make a mistake, say you made a mistake, own up to it. People understand mistakes. They don't understand being lied to or being stonewalled. And it's just very important that your honesty and your integrity is from top to bottom, and it really always starts with you.
Dr. Goodman, all great points. Curious, your staff there. I'm assuming based upon what you just told me, what you've told me over this past 30 minutes, there's not a lot of turnover at your practice, correct?
Um, yeah, not really.
Well, put the associates
Fortunately,
aside, I think, because I think every practice owner is experiencing some issues. But I mean,
um, we
yeah,
we've actually most of our associates when they start here they stay,
mm,
and we've had all of them are a lot of them are 8, 10 year
right,
people. Treat them well, pay them fairly. listen to what they say, and be aware of, what their needs are. The work-life balance piece is just an overwrought thing. It's just treat them with respect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing, and pay them well.
Right.
They're the only ones who can earn money for you. And if they earn more and they get compensation for what they earn, be happy about that. Don't be sad you have to pay them productivity
Right.
because they're earning you money.
Right. It's a win-win
in that regard. Right.
But Dr. Goodman, it's great to see you. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for listening to Just Vetting. We'll see you next time.